And I do believe our guests are ready for us. Is Gene Bell, also Mrs. Bell, and there we are. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Doing good. Look, when we last left you, and it was in an interview, and Angela Hill was also on, Senator Hill, who said when she was on about that the parole board had made a mistake as far as the publication of the proper publication and everything else. So it took a couple of 3 days, but that was done. Now, take us, guys, from where we are now, what has transpired, anything new, and where we go from here to Wednesday. And the mic is yours, Gene. Go ahead, sir.
Well, Paul, thank you for having us this morning. Since the original letter that we received that where it stated that Frederick Bell was actually granted parole, we gained a tremendous amount of support throughout the state, not only in our own community of Grenada, but throughout the state, from representatives, state senators, even U.S. senators. We have received some more information that came out September the 26th that where it said that they had offset the hearing, or set aside the hearing until October the 26th, which is this Wednesday. Then received another letter 3 days after that stating that, a parole hearing was set. We could call the parole office, just a general standard letter that you always get when the offender is up for parole. And I called the parole office then to set up another face-to-face meeting, where I was denied that meeting. I was only allowed a teleconference, which did take place on Columbus Day, October the 10th. So, I kind of found it a little interesting that I was denied the actual in-person meeting as we had been granted since 2015, since this has been going on. The parole board did run the publication that was held up from Frederick Bell being released back in September. But what I found interesting about that too is, the statute says that it must be run in a newspaper, whether it be local or a paper where it's distributed, I'm assuming, in that particular area is what the statute says. Found it interesting that they ran that publication in the Clarion Ledger. I wish I knew a real stat on that. As far as what I'm fixing to say, I would say that less than 1% of Grenadians or people in Calhoun County receive the Clarion Ledger. Personally, I don't even know where to get one. So, it's I think I've used the word vindictive or manipulative.
Yeah. Or lazy, or possibly. Yeah. Or possibly lazy. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I want to go back on that one, because this seems to be something that could generate another postponement. But does the language specifically say that? And for any, just to use the word, in your hometown newspaper or newspaper of origin, or how does it? What's the language in the parole board's mandates?
The language does not state that. We've actually reached out to some others, and the Attorney General, and by understanding, the Attorney General does not see where that is illegal. However, they do think it's possibly a little shady. So I think, no application for parole of a person convicted of capital offense shall be considered by the parole board without notification of filing such applications that have been published at least once a week for 2 weeks in a newspaper published in or having general circulation in the county in which the crime was committed. That is the actual statute.
Then that's wrong, because it certainly doesn't have general circulation or general subscriptions. I guess if you had a couple of stands with a Clarion Ledger in the Grenada area, but I can see how that's going to be gray area one way or the other. But I do agree with you. They might as well have put it in the Sun Herald on the coast.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Public outcry, is one part of the statute, and that's what the publication is for, to see what public outcry is out there over these things. Paul, I can tell you that I've learned for a month now, I've learned that my community is not only Grenada, but it's Mississippi. We have a great state. There's well over 1,800 letters that have been emailed in, personally hand-delivered to the parole board. One thing that the parole board said before, that the district attorney didn't speak up, the local district attorney, that's not the case. The district attorney has written multiple letters. There have been letters written by Chris McDaniel There's been letters written by Senator Angela Hill and her constituents, local sheriff, multiple county sheriff associations, police associations, Mississippi Highway Patrol Association. Probably the strongest letter outside of the handwritten letter my mother wrote came from Attorney General Lynn Fitch last week. That was also delivered to the governor's office as well. And by the way, we've heard from a lot of, elected officials or somebody within their office, and I've not heard anything from the governor's office still today.
Have you heard from the lieutenant governor or the speaker?
I have not heard from either one of those. No, sir.
It is kind of weird because we have this meeting of two different stories on both sides of the palette here, because that one with Tasha Shelby, who's in prison, and then that story we had on the air also, which brings in the parole board and the entire thing, and it's just it's both sides of the spectrum where she's not even given another hearing with all the new evidence out there. Certainly when the doctor says that he changed his mind on this one, it was accidental, and she's still in prison. And then on the other side, you got somebody who viciously murders two people, and they're getting out of prison. And it doesn't make sense. And I don't think this sets well with a lot of people in the state. And for our leaders, most of them to remain silent on this one way or the other is not good. I want to give your wife a chance to say anything that she wants to say about this one. But Ms. Bell, your thoughts on this?
Well, the only thing, is just here to support. It's not anything that you can actually explain. Anybody you talk to just wants to know why, and you can't explain it. None of it is explainable. It just blows everybody's mind, and you would think that common sense would top a lot and would prevail in the situation. And that's what our prayer is that the Lord will prevail, and that, that he'll be glorified in whatever the outcome is.
All right. Gene, what happens after Wednesday if they do decide to go and let this guy be paroled? How long before he gets out? Is it immediate, or does it take a couple of days processing? Or what's the timetable on that?
Paul, I don't know that answer. Those are other answers that we've not heard from, as far as where's he going, what's he going to do. Those are things that are written in the statute that we should know, and we don't know that. So I can't answer that. I don't know.
One of the reasons to have the publication, that's your hometown publication, do that is to alert the people, certainly if he's going to be moving back into that area. And it's victims' rights, it's just a safety issue, and I would think that protocol would have been done, but it's a little disappointing to know that it has not been done. So where do you go from here? If he is released, there's not a lot more that you could do. Your fight's over.
I don't know of anything else we can do, Paul, other than moving forward to raise awareness of the system that we currently have in place. We've got to figure something out. We've got to come up with something for victims. We have not had a lot of success in our fight with that we feel like that everything is geared towards the offender. So we've got to figure something out there within the state to help others in our fight. Yeah. And we won't stop. We plead for the governor to step up and step in. The governors in California, even one of the most liberal states in the world, has even stepped in and said, no, this 74-year-old lady that was a follower of Dahmer is still too dangerous today. This is so. And then in Minnesota, the same thing that happened, where the governor stepped in, and then his parole board chair abruptly resigned after that. So we've got to put an end to this. One thing I'd like to bring up real quick is.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
When you talk about our Attorney General Lynn Fitch, she wrote a magnificent 4-page letter, and she details in her letter to the parole board and to the governor of how Frederick Bell has manipulated the system since 1993, deemed mentally retarded, but received a GED and almost a college education. I was unaware scientifically that there is and we're not talking about the mentally retarded people out there, but I was unaware that a mentally retarded person could get a GED and almost a college education. What educations out there are for those types? I'm questioning those things, and then we've had those reports come out that I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, we got a break coming up here. I'll give you your final say when we come back. Hold on. But the other part of that is this. Should something happen later, if it is some mental issues, God forbid that somebody else is injured or their life taken, then those who remain silent now, from things such as where is he going? Is it in a place where they can take care of him? We'll continue with that conversation coming up next. Hang on. The levee. All right, let me get back to Gene Bell and the final thoughts here, but I did want to mention for people who haven't been keeping up with this one, your young brother was at a grocery store or at a store as a clerk. This guy, Frederick Bell, no acquaintance, of course, came up, shot him, robbed him, shot him 9 times. Then he had the mental wherewithal to get in a vehicle, travel all the way to Memphis, and he accosted another clerk, shot him, riddled his body with 11 shots, took his life on the very same day. And then after a battle of 30 years, during that time, he actually went through an appeal and escaped the death penalty. A little bit later on, with all the fighting against it, he escaped the life in prison, and now it looks like he's going to be paroled on Wednesday of this week. Your final thoughts, sir?
Well, Paul, again, we thank you for allowing us to be on the show this morning. We just want to reach out to anybody and everybody in the state of Mississippi to call the parole board today, tomorrow. Reach out to them and Chairman Jeffrey Bell and let them know that we're not going to stand for this. Your voice does matter. Call the governor's office. We've had a lot of people that's been on our side and done that for us as well too. To all the state representatives, state senators, we ask you to join our fight here. We've had a lot of people to join us and reach out to the governor, and that's where we're at. Public outcry does matter, and your voice does matter. We want to be loud and clear on this.
Well, look, we'll watch it and see exactly what happens. What time do they meet? Is it a 10 o'clock meeting on Wednesday? Is that what time it is, or do you know?
Typically, they meet anywhere from 1 to 5 p.m. in the afternoons when they hear cases. So any time during that time frame. So
keep us informed, and we appreciate it. Mrs. Bell, any final thoughts from you, ma'am?
Actually, I just want to put a shout out there for anyone that does want to call the Mississippi Parole Board. You can call them. Their phone number is 601-359-5628. And if you 800 number is 1-866-522-4087. And we would love for anyone just to call and give your opinion, and because your opinion matters. We have to support the citizens of Mississippi, and the only way we can do it is by people standing up and calling.
I will tweet those out. It's always good to hear from the public. I'm sure they'll welcome that. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it very much. Both of you.